Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You are here with Ryan Arico.
Thank you, Jason. And I just wanted to let our fans know that us here at Wrasslin Raw, we don't ever go on strike.
Joe Gimateo.
You know, there's lots of trash out there in wrestling podcasts today. It's time for someone to clean it up.
Are you saying that from the comforts of your dumpster?
Yeah.
Reclined in trash? I'm Jason Bartlett. That's no relation to Rob Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on October 3rd, 1994. This Raw was recorded at the Memorial Auditorium in Utica, New York, and features Vince McMahon and the Macho Man, Randy Savage, on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Let's get it going.
Yes.
All right, then, let's get into it. As per usual, we're going to start off Raw this week with Vince yelling at us again, reminding us about King's Court last week, where we saw Jim the Anvil Neidhart challenge the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, to some in-ring action. And after he reminds us about that, we're going to cut to a scene earlier tonight at the street outside the Memorial Auditorium, where the Anvil and Owen Hart arrive in a fucking pimp Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme looking fly. They get out of the car and the Anvil does some jawing, but my eyes were on Owen, and Owen says the British Bulldog is nothing more than a mud dog anyway. I have no idea what that meant. Mud dog. Nothing more than a mud dog. It's going to be the battle of the brother-in-laws here on Monday Night Raw, and that takes us into the opening sequence and straight into our first match of the night. And the first match of the night is the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, defeating Jim the Anvil Neidhart with Owen Hart at ringside by DQ in 10 minutes and 16 seconds. So the match starts with the British Bulldog entering the ring with this crazy golden cloak thing with the Union Jack sewed onto the inside of it. Speaking of Union Jack, the Bulldog is Union Jacked and brown as hell. No cornrows present, sad to say, but looking quite glorious. It's good to see the Bulldog walking back down to the ring ready for some action. While he's walking down to the ring, Vince lets us know that tonight, Mr. Backlund is going to be in action. He also lets us know that Doink is going to be in action. I can't wait to talk about that one with you guys. Next, we get a graphic of the women's tag match that's going to happen between Alundra Blaze, Heidi Lee Morgan, Bull Nakano, and Luna Vachon. At this point, Vince calls Bull Nakano huge. He tells us that she's huge. She's a monster. He tells us that Yokozuna is going to be in the King's Court. And at this point is when the Anvil comes down to the ring with Owen by his side. The match starts with Owen Hart distracting the Bulldog so that the Anvil can get a hit in on the Bulldog from behind. Owen is shouting, "He's got all the brawn, but none of the brains. He's just stupid." The Bulldog and the Anvil go for a series of lockups, and the Bulldog holds down the Anvil in an armbar and is looking ridiculously jacked, like I said before. Anvil gets to the rope, and the ref breaks the hold. There's just a fantastic old-school test of strength here. They go back and forth. The Bulldog ultimately comes out on top there. And we get some dirty tactics from the Anvil. There's some eye gouges and some choking going on. And Vince likes to remind us repeatedly that this is a very physical match, while the Anvil has the Bulldog down in a hold. The Bulldog rallies out of the hold, and when the ref isn't looking, Owen Hart holds down the rope so that the Bulldog falls out of the ring when he tries to bounce off. At this point, Bret the Hitman Hart is walking down to ringside as we cut to commercial. We come back, and Anvil and Bulldog are both in the ring, and Owen and Bret are both outside the ring, but at different sides. There isn't any kind of kerfuffle going on at ringside there. The Bulldog is starting to signal that his leg is injured. And I think he must have taken some pointers from Bret on how to get some cheap sympathy by feigning an injury in the ring. Owen is at ringside yelling, "Somebody ought to put a muzzle on, put a leash on that dog." And Vince mentions about somebody ought to put a muzzle on Owen. The Bulldog starts to get ahead, but gets slowed down by more dirty tricks. The Anvil singlet must have been too tight because at one point he strips off the top half of it and starts yelling and slapping the Bulldog in the face. The Bulldog briefly rallies again and does a lot of running and kicking before going back to the mat complaining about his knee again. The Anvil now remembers that the Bulldog has an injured knee, and he starts to go to work on it with a hold that really doesn't look like it does much of anything. We get another shot of Owen at ringside yelling, "Everything was just great until Bret had to come out. He should just get the heck out of here and let these two guys wrestle. He should mind his own business." The Anvil is starting to get winded here as he puts the Bulldog into a camel clutch. You can see him really starting to suck some air. Vince and the Macho Man are convinced that the Bulldog is going to submit in this hold, but he does not. The Anvil releases the Bulldog in order to go up top for a flying splash, but misses it. The Bulldog is rallying again and gets the Anvil into a standing vertical suplex with some good height. I have to admit it was really impressive. And at this point, we have Bob Backlund coming to ringside, and the Macho Man says, "Oh, not another dictionary," referencing their last encounter last week. Backlund goes straight for Bret Hart and is talking to him at ringside. There's no funny business there. There's no attacks or anything. There's just talking. The Anvil and the Bulldog are stalled in the ring. And at this point, Owen jumps up to kick the Bulldog in the face. The ref calls for the bell to signal the DQ. Bret climbs in the ring to save the Bulldog as Anvil and Owen are laying in punches while the Bulldog is down. Bret and the Bulldog whip the Anvil and Owen into each other, driving both of them to the mat. Owen and Anvil roll out of the ring as the Bulldog has his hand raised as the victor, while the heels here, Owen and Anvil, head out the entranceway. And we didn't receive any notification that Bob Backlund had left ringside, but apparently he did, with no snapping involved. And right before we cut to commercial, Vince says nobody here is on strike. So that's the end of the match. Before we get to this commercial, let's go over it. Joe, why don't you kick it off for us?
Yeah, Vince is obsessed with the baseball strike, for sure. The first thing, I have quite a few notes on this match just because this was definitely the best match on the show. Most high-profile match, anyway. So 2 weeks in a row, we have the most high-profile match, the one that they hyped up a week ago, start off the show. It's kind of a pattern that they're building up here. The first thing I noticed was Anvil is a heel, and he's using the Hart Foundation music still. So he has the same exact music as Bret Hart, which I thought was a little weird. Because I heard the music, and I thought, wait, is this Bret?
Yeah.
Coming out with Bulldog? Because if I remember correctly, Bulldog came out first, right?
Yes.
So yeah, as soon as they played the music, I was like, oh, I guess Bret's going to be in his corner. But it was Anvil using the same music.
It felt a little low rent.
Yeah. We're fresh off the steroid trial, and out comes the Bulldog. I mean, he is.
I'm confused. He looked completely natural to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he is juiced hard. The missing cornrows, Bartlett, didn't bother me as much last week, but this week I notice it more. Like when he's actually wrestling, I think it's a better look. The cornrows were a better look for him.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're coming around on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Bulldog as a wrestler. I think he's a great wrestler for a big guy. I didn't think this match was great. I thought it was okay. You could tell Anvil was just winded halfway through this match, but he's working heel, so he had to kind of fake his way through that and busted out the sloppy beer belly. You said he ripped off the top of his singlet there.
Must have got a little too tight.
In Mr. Perfect style.
Yeah. So Bret Hart did eventually come out, like you said. I like, one of the things I always like about watching wrestling on TV is like seeing the crowd get excited, and you don't know who it is. I mean, you assume it's Bret Hart, but you don't know. Then the camera finally pans over, We noticed it last week on AEW, like when the Young Bucks came out, the crowd's going crazy, but you're wondering like, who the hell is this? Then the camera pans over. So I always think that's pretty cool when that happens. Owen yelling into the camera never gets old to me. I love it. And Anvil used the camel clutch as a finisher against jobbers the past couple weeks, but he's just kind of using it as a regular move here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the match goes, that's pretty much all I noted. But the commentary, like, the word powerhouse was just overused by both Vince and Macho Man. And Vince just losing his mind constantly about the unbelievable power of the anvil. So just the word power in general, I probably should have rewatched this and counted how many times they said the word power during this match. Macho mentions Princess Diana in the news.
Yes.
Saying that he hopes this works out better, or something like that. Like, I hope this works out better for the Bulldog than what's happening with Princess Di in the news.
I have a small tidbit. I did some digging into the news to figure out what exact incident he was talking about. So
I think this is when she was like having an affair with somebody, right? Wasn't that
right? I'll give the exact details in a second.
Yeah. So Macho cluing us in on that. And that's all I have. That's it.
I kind of agree with you, Joe. It's not a fantastic match, but it's serviceable. It does its job. Both of these guys, as we heard from both Vince and Macho all through the night, are big powerhouses. So, this isn't going to be a high flying, quick paced match. It's going to be pretty slow and methodical. And it was. Macho even starts it off, his line, this isn't going to be poetry in motion tonight with these two powerhouses. It's going to be power on power. And that's exactly what it was. Just a slow slam here. Let's hold a lock for 5 minutes while we catch our breath type moves. But all in all, it did its job. The Anvil doesn't always look great in single matches, but I felt he did a pretty good job here with the Bulldog. He was selling these hits from the Bulldog well. I thought they worked pretty good together here. Like I said, it's not a match that anyone's going to be talking about decades and decades from now, but it did its job for opening Raw. To give you that little bit of tidbit I was looking up about when the Macho mentioned about Princess Diana, it appeared this was during the royal split up between Charles and Diana. But this specific incident was an article that got released in the News of the World claiming that Diana has made over 300 phone calls to a married art dealer aptly named Oliver Hoare. So that appeared to be what was just in the news. It was about 2 or 3 weeks before this Raw where that was the big royal gossip that was going on. The only other things to really mention in this, I did love Owen Hart. Bartlett, you already mentioned the one line, but my favorite line of the night is, everything was going great until Brett had to come out. You should get the heck out of here. It's always great to watch Owen Hart play heel. I love Owen Hart as heel. So outside of that, it wasn't too much else. I mean, to kind of recap, it was a good powerhouse match, but it was nothing fast-paced or fantastic, and we're just going to move on.
Yeah, I was going to mention it would have been better to see Owen versus the Bulldog, but then you wouldn't have Owen barking on the side of the ring there.
Or as we know, we have all 4 of these guys down at the ring. They're all fantastic tag. So, I mean, if we could have Bret Hart and the Bulldog versus Anvil and Owen, that would be a fantastic match.
Right.
Did you guys ever in a million years think that whenever we would be talking about a British Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart match, that we would wind up hearing about Princess Diana's phone calls and royal gossip?
And Oliver Hoare?
Yes. Yes.
You fucking whore.
It just astounds me where some of the shit takes us sometimes. As far as the match goes, I gotta admit, I was kind of saddened by this a little bit. Like you, Joe, I've always been a fan of the Bulldog, always liked Davey Boy Smith, and in this match, I could see the ring rust on him. He'd been out of circulation for a little bit, it seems like, and he was slow getting back into it. I was excited to see him in action for the first time since we've been rewatching Raw here. And I was kind of let down by it. I mean, I'm realistic about it. I understand, ring rust is a thing and he will get better. So I'm not too put out by it, but it was just kind of sad to see him not in peak form. Like I remember him. As far as the Anvil goes, oh man, it was the way that he started sucking wind halfway through. Like he was blowing and breathing like people with emphysema or something. Yeah, like, do you know what I'm talking about? He was getting like beat red and just
absolutely. Well, I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I forget which jobber he was beating on, but it was like a 3-minute match. By the end of it, he was just, you could hear and see that he was just sucking wind like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And what makes it worse is he's working heel in the match. So like he's controlling most of the match.
Yeah.
And, Davey Boy is selling the knee injury through at least half of the match, and it's just, he's sucking wind the whole time.
Yeah, and Ryan, I think you mentioned there were just so many spots where you could see the holds were there purely for him to catch his breath. I mean, there was one, I think it was I think it was maybe a reverse chin lock, and the Anvil was just like resting his head on the Bulldog's shoulder. Like I'm watching it and I'm like, man, this isn't healthy. Forget entertaining. This isn't fucking healthy.
We are in the heart attack tour.
Yeah, man. It's not just a clever name. So that's it. I mean, as far as the rest of the match and my overall opinion of the match goes, it is what it is. It was two big names going at it. It was good to see the Bulldog. I look forward to him getting better. The Anvil's whatever. Owen was a gem, as always. I love Owen Hart. So yeah.
Or a nugget, if you will.
As we leave this match, this takes us into a commercial. And there's a couple things that I'm very excited to talk with you guys about. And this commercial is the first one of them. So as we mentioned before, we exited the Anvil Bulldog match with Vince yelling, "Nobody here is on strike." So we get to this commercial and there's a little kid walking out onto a baseball diamond. There's a voiceover saying that for the first time in history, there will not be a World Series this year.
This year, there will not be a World Series.
There's a tear rolling down this kid's cheek as he drops his glove and ball to the dirt at the pitcher's mound. The voice says, "In an era where promises are often broken." And then the Macho Man shows up and says, "Hey, kid." The kid turns around and the Macho Man is standing there with a baseball bat saying, "Let's hit a few." The voice says, "Superstars still believe in making dreams come true." And we get a graphic of a baseball with the WWF World Wrestling Federation symbol and the phrase, "Our season never ends." The kid says to Macho as they're walking off into the sunset, "Do you guys ever go on strike?" And Macho replies with, "Nope, and we don't play hockey either." Ryan, thoughts, please.
It was hilarious. I mean, the way they got the guy that would do the voiceovers for those super serious commercials in the 80s and early 90s.
In a world where the baseball players are on strike.
It was hilarious to watch. And I didn't remember Vince McMahon and the WWF just going so hard after baseball because of their strike. This has been week after week of them just pounding on them about going on strike. So it was pretty hilarious to watch. This commercial took me by surprise, and I loved Macho Man in it. I loved everything about it. It was hilarious.
Well, yeah, Macho Man is on his way to becoming Bo Jackson or Deion Sanders here, because last week they said he's trying
Danders?
out for yeah, he's trying out for the Cardinals football team for Buddy Ryan, and now he's playing baseball. So
Buddy Ryan gets mentioned a little later too.
Yeah, I remember this commercial. I actually remember this. And thank you to the WWE Network for leaving all of these commercials in here.
Yes, and thank Friar Ferguson.
Thank Friar Ferguson that we are able to see these again. Yeah, this was great.
I actually think that's one of the best things about the network is them leaving in these commercials.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
It's so great.
Yeah, this was one of those moments where it came on and I was sitting here watching it and I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Are you serious with this shit right now? But they absolutely were. And they went balls deep into it. And here we are. I mean, like you say, Ryan, I don't remember them going this fucking hard on the baseball strike. Like, it's been weekly. They haven't let up on it. And watching this commercial, they were really hedging bets on grabbing viewers or something. Like, they put an awful lot of time into it.
It's like they were basically saying, America's sport has let you down. Come over to the WWF.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the pop culture references in general. Like, now you watch wrestling now, they don't even mention anything ever outside of the actual wrestling.
No, it's almost like it's in its own world.
Yeah, but yeah, watching these old ones, man, it's like it's nonstop.
And more often than not during a period in Raw where there's a lull in action or during matches that they just don't feel like paying attention to. That entire 1-2-3 Kid match last week.
Yeah, I guess that's a big difference from now and then is you don't get the jobber matches now. So
spoiler alert, when this podcast is 25 years old, there probably won't be a jobber of the week anymore.
Wow. Well, in that case, every week it'll be Kane.
Maybe we'll have to go for mid-carders at that point. Mid-carder of the week.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so.
Speaking of jobbers.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Our next match. Doink the Clown with Dink defeating Barry Horowitz by pinfall in 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Jesus Christ. All right. Doink and Dink enter the ring where Barry Horowitz is already waiting. We're going to cut to a quick Slim Jim commercial. And when we come back, the match has begun. Vince posits that Doink would very much prefer to be locking up with Jerry the King Lawler. And I've got it noted here, Doink is having a hard time moving here. His ring attire has been changed.
Now with those knee braces.
Yeah, for this being a squash match, Doink is getting his ass kicked. Vince mentions about the King breaking Dink's tricycle, which we talked about last week, and Macho replies with he took away his tricycle and made it a unicycle. He didn't like that. Barry Horowitz is doing a pretty good job here, and at this point, I'm starting to think that maybe the mistake of having a jobber put on the clown makeup is sinking in with Vince at all. Doink is not moving like Matt Bourne at all. The difference is jarring. This is the first time, I think, and guys correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time since we've moved away from a dedicated Doink, the Matt Bourne as Doink, and it's been a while. This is the first time we've seen him in action on Raw, I mean.
Yeah, I believe so. I think Joe brought that up either last week or the week before about how we haven't seen the new Doink wrestle yet.
And seeing this guy move, I'm glad that we haven't seen it up until this point. Doink's finishing move is a sit-down bomb from the top rope that Vince calls the whoopee cushion. And when Doink hits it, there is a
oh my goodness, excuse me,
fart noise, which prompts Vince to say, oh my goodness, excuse me. Oh, so stupid. With that, Doink gets the 3 count. Vince says, stand by because we're going to hear from The Undertaker, who has been looking for Yokozuna on the Heart Attack Tour. Before we get to that, let's please talk about this match. Joe, Doink the Clown. What do you think?
Well, I've been like Ryan said, I've been asking for the last couple of weeks, can this new Doink even wrestle? And I think we got our answer here. Like you said, it seems as though Doink is the enhancement talent for Barry Horowitz, at least early on in this match. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
By the way, Barry Horowitz doing this pat on the back gimmick that he does is bizarre, and he still does that because I saw on Twitter he was at StarCast and he was doing this pat on the back thing. So I guess he just
Okay.
He keeps that going. And the other thing I noticed about Barry Horowitz is it looks like he has half a can of Copenhagen in his bottom lip during the whole match.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed that. It looks like he has a huge ripper in his mouth during the whole thing.
When you're in a match against fake Doink, why take it out?
Yeah. This Doink is really, really bad. I love the whoopee cushion thing. I thought it was hilarious. Vince, oh my goodness, excuse me. I don't know. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a pretty pathetic match. As you mentioned, Bartlett, the difference between the Matt Osborne Doink and this Doink are striking. He is just so slow. And at one point, Vince tries to describe him as if it's still the Matt Doink. Vince said, and it couldn't have happened at a worse time. Vince says he's really playing up Doink's in-ring ability and what a great wrestler he is. And at that very point, Doink tries to go for this backslide into a pin, and it's the slowest, sloppiest looking backslide that you'd ever see right after Vince tries to play up his wrestling ability. Yeah, it was pretty pathetic to watch. I can't say I agree with Joe on the whoopee cushion finish. When I heard that fart noise, it just completely took me out of what was already a horrible match. I was also a bit confused about why Leslie Nielsen would be proud.
Yeah.
That was a line that came out. I mean, maybe if someone out there listening knows exactly why Leslie Nielsen would be proud about that, drop us a line, but I was confused as hell.
Complete parody of a wrestling match.
But yeah, that's all I got to talk about the Doink Barry Horowitz match.
It was just so horrible. I'm not even going to really keep going with it other than to say I totally disagree with you on the whoopee cushion, Joe. It was horrible. It was stupid. I want to know how they even did it. Like it didn't seem like anybody in the crowd was like laughing or anything. So probably was not done over the PA system. Vince,
I think
Vince knew it was happening.
one of them did it, like on the mic.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. Is I think maybe one of them had like a fart machine at ringside.
Yeah,
probably Vince.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I get that this isn't exactly highbrow entertainment, but my God.
Well, it is a clown in the ring.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're going to have a finishing move called the whoopee cushion
with a midget
that makes a fart sound, at least maybe have the midget carrying an actual whoopee cushion with him, and then like, you know, once you get towards the end, have the midget blow it up on the side of the ring, and then hand it to Doink, and then like throw the Doink and put the whoopee cushion underneath him as he's flying through the air, and at least have some kind of legitimacy to this bullshit. This was horrible. Pissed me off, that fucking whoopee cushion thing. So stupid. All right, anyway. That's enough about that fucking shit. So let's get to a bright point here. The Undertaker and Paul Bearer have another vignette that we see from Superstars this past weekend. The vignette starts with the camera angle like looking up from inside the coffin, with the Undertaker and Paul Bearer looking down upon the open casket. Paul Bearer begins, "Yokozuna, the Heart Attack Tour. You released the power of the urn. Now the essence of the Undertaker has been recaptured, and you'll pay." Then he points to the Undertaker. The Undertaker says, "Yokozuna." And I think it's weird how the Undertaker says Yokozuna. Like he says it like with a Japanese accent. Yokozuna.
I have that noted too to bring up because he did it last time too. But yeah, the way he like quickly says Yokozuna.
Yeah. Yokozuna. We thought you might like this viewpoint. As you know, the next time you look into the coldness of these eyes, you'll be looking up from this casket. Yokozuna. Prepare to meet the wrath of the Undertaker. Prepare to rest in peace. Ryan, thoughts? Was it Chubb worthy?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very short video, but like most of these have been, it was still golden. Paul Bear and his facial reactions to things, he's just so beautiful. My favorite part is the very end when they start closing the casket and Paul Bear's waving as the casket closes. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have noted too. It's
it's a short video. There's not a ton to talk about.
Yeah, and everything Paul Bear. I mean, Paul Bear. Well, I didn't really notice how Undertaker says Yokozuna as much because I watch Paul Bear the whole time. Like my eyes are on him because everything he does is hilarious.
He's a national treasure.
Yeah.
I did see that this was in the same boiler room with the excessive steam.
Yeah. It's same location. This is the Raw I said that they filmed like 3 at the same time.
Yeah,
so.
they like taped it like an hour after the last one. So
still got to plug that Heart Attack tour.
Yeah, coming to a town near you. And speaking of, after this vignette, there's a couple commercials that take us into King's Court. So we start with ringside. Vince is shouting that up next after this commercial break, we're going to have Yokozuna in King's Court. And then we get the Todd Pettingzoo voiceover of Feel the Beat of Excitement. This commercial is the Heart Attack Tour commercial with the great computer graphics and the Todd Pettingzoo voiceover. And they're going to be in Louisville, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, Tampa, Florida, Sunrise, Florida, Baltimore, Maryland, Landover, Maryland, finishing up in Hershey, PA. And feel the beat of excitement as the WWF Heart Attack Tour makes its way to your town. I can see these commercials starting to get kind of old for me personally.
Yeah, Todd Pettingzoo got one of his cheesy jokes in there too.
You know, I was listening to Ask JR, the newest episode of Grillin' JR, the Ask JR Anything. Apparently Linda McMahon just fucking loved Todd Pettengill.
Yeah, I was listening to that one too, and he actually talked up Pettengill quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Talked about how he was like very underrated and yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say you're full of shit, JR.
So take that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love you, buddy, but
I don't care how red-assed you are.
Yeah. I love JR, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with him on that. Anyway, whenever we get out of the Heart Attack Tour commercial, we come back to King's Court, and it's set up in the ring and ready to go. The King uses his standard lines about peons, and the crowd hates him, and I'm kind of starting to get a little tired of King's Courts here. But on a positive note, this isn't that long, and it gets kind of entertaining at the end. He says he's going to clear the air about some things and set the record straight. 2 things that he can't stand. Somebody like Doink that has to dress up in a ridiculous outfit just to try to get attention, which the irony here being that this is being spoken by a man wearing a crown and a cape. And the other thing he can't stand is liars, and he wouldn't believe Randy Savage if the man's tongue was notarized. I thought that was clever.
I think that's another one of those out of the 1001.
Yeah. Yokozuna is going to come out with 2 of his friends to set the record straight because a lot of people have been saying that Yokozuna is scared of The Undertaker, and that is a lie. At this point, Vince wants to wish Gore Vidal a happy birthday at age 69. And also, Chubby Checker turns 53 today. Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji lead Yokozuna to the ring.
Double wide! Double deep!
Cornette says that whenever he's like presenting Yokozuna, Cornette says, "Isn't he magnificent?" Which I love Jim Cornette. These King's Courts with Jim Cornette are great.
Cornette had a couple great lines here.
Yeah. The King gets straight to it and he says, "Jimmy, there are rumors that Yokozuna is afraid of The Undertaker." Cornette says that he wants to dispel some of the rumors. None of it is the truth and it's all yellow journalism, which I don't know what that means. I feel really off kilter with that. I feel like I should know what it means, but I don't.
Yellow journalism, it was a term from, it's a very old term, like hundreds of years old, but it's basically fake news. It's making up stories to try and bash your opponents, and it used to be called yellow journalism.
Okay. Well, it's a smear campaign set up by Paul Bearer and The Undertaker to disguise and cloud the real issue, that being that The Undertaker is scared of Yokozuna. Now, everybody knows what kind of a match is coming up on the Heart Attack Tour between Yokozuna and The Undertaker. It's a match where there's a large box at ringside with a lid on it. You have to throw your opponent in the box and close the lid. The King says that it's one of the most dangerous matches in all of wrestling, a casket match. And at the mention of the word casket, Yokozuna starts to become agitated. At this point, I noticed that Yoko's zebra print robe has pictures of Yoko's face on it and random words like sail. Cornette says, don't say caskets. He doesn't like that word. They go back and forth a few times, like vaudeville style, saying casket over and over again until Cornette gets back on his line about this being a smear campaign. He says The Undertaker and his greasy Gomez Adams lookalike realize that Yokozuna is the only man that ever beat him in his own match, the only man that has ever laid The Undertaker to rest. And I loved this. This was great. Yokozuna is sweating like a pig here, and he wipes the sweat from his brow and then pastes it on the camera lens that's up there in the ring with them. And we get a good 2-3 seconds of footage after this looking through a lens covered in Yokozuna's sweat. He's fucking sweating just standing there. Cornette finishes up by saying that Yokozuna will make The Undertaker rest in peace. Joe, opinions on this episode of King's Court?
I think they turned up the heat in the Utica Memorial Center because not only did Yoko rub his blubber on the camera lens, but James E. Cornette was sweaty as fuck when he was talking.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know. I didn't really note much here other than, it's a nice build up, obviously, for the casket match. But I noticed that Jerry Lawler had said something like along the lines of, let's clear the air here. And Macho Man said, I thought Doink just did that. And Chubby Checker, a quick story about Chubby Checker.
Okay.
Chubby Checker's from Philly, and his son is also a musician. And Ryan, I don't know, were you with me when in Philly over with Scott whenever we saw Chubby Checker's son's band?
No.
Okay.
I was not.
We were at this bar and Chubby Checker's son was in a band and they were playing and they were not good, but they were playing like a lot of funk, music. And I was yelling for them to play Rick James in between songs, like a couple times. And he got really pissed off. He like, after one of the songs, he was like, who the fuck keeps yelling Rick James? And I just walked away. And yeah, happy birthday, Chubby Checker.
Yeah.
If your son is out there listening, fuck you.
Yeah, he's a total dick. Anyway, yeah, I like this for the build up for the casket match, but there wasn't anything really noteworthy here.
Like you said, Bartlett, I'm starting to get a little bit tired with these King's Courts. They happen every week, but just like last week, maybe they're starting to realize that the fans are getting a little bit tired with them because they're starting to cut the length of them down quite a bit. And this one's a good length. It doesn't really take up a lot of time. We quickly get Yokozuna and Cornette out here and get Cornette on the mic so he could lay a couple gems like the Paul Bear looking like a greasy Gomez Adams. That was my favorite. As far as things to mention, one of my favorite, as you both talked about, was Yoko wiping his sweat. That was really fantastic. I love seeing that. The one oddity neither of you mentioned is them talking about Roseanne Barr's divorce to Tom Arnold and her wearing the Playboy bunny outfit. That is a mental image that I don't think I could ever bleach out of my mind. So thank you, WWE, for planting that in my head.
Yeah, I whenever I was doing my notes on this episode, I had to make a decision between what Cornette was saying and what Ringside was saying. And I went with Cornette because the topical stuff that Vince and Macho get into can be funny sometimes, But they were harping on Roseanne Barr throughout this entire episode of Raw.
I mainly brought this up because it will be brought up yet again later on.
Yeah, I had to tune it out because, like I said before, I'm a fan of Cornette, and I couldn't divide my attention between Vince being a jackass and talking about Roseanne Barr of all fucking people. Who gives a shit? Anyway, getting back to this King's Court, though. Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I think they're starting to get the idea that they can't keep using these as filler in between squash matches.
Or at least not for too much filler.
Yeah. They are serving a purpose as of right now. This one really didn't. This one just kind of more or less reminded us that Yokozuna was around and there's a casket match that's going to be happening. At least with the one last week, it was like a vehicle for the Anvil to come out and challenge the Bulldog. You know, it was a nice organic way for that to happen. This one was just a throwaway, with the exception of Cornette, Yokozuna wiping the sweat. You know, that stuff. That stuff was good. I'm glad that I got to see that. But yeah, that wiping the sweat on the camera lens just grossed me the hell out, though. They left it on that camera. They left it on that camera for like 4 or 5 seconds after. But we're going to come out of King's Court into a brief video montage, and we've got more footage of Lex Luger at SummerSlam proving that he's a man of his word in clips from his match with Tatanka. And then we get clips of the moment that the single greatest heel turn in the history of professional wrestling happens as Tatanka shoves a $100 bill down the throat of an unconscious Lex Luger. Now, Lex Luger is going to try to repay the $1 Million Man by liquidating one of his assets, Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam wants to show the All-American that crime does pay. Next week on Raw, Lex Luger versus Bam Bam Bigelow. I wasn't aware that we were portraying Bam Bam Bigelow as a criminal. Did you guys remember anything about this? Because what the fuck does Bam Bam... How is he going to show the All-American that crime does pay? What crime?
Yeah, this is out of nowhere.
He's with the $1 Million Man, so I guess you're just to assume that he's shady. I don't know.
Okay, well, as long as it wasn't just me. We're going to cut the commercial here. This is going to take us into our next match. And there's a little bit of controversy happening here at Wrasslin Raw, folks, that we will get into. The next match is Alundra Blaze and Heidi Lee Morgan defeating Bull Nakano and Luna Vachon by pinfall in 5 minutes and 2 seconds. And Ryan has chosen the Jobber of the Week as Heidi Lee Morgan. State your case, Ryan.
I did. I picked Heidi Lee Morgan as the Jobber of the Week here, mainly because in the woman's world in the WWF, she is a jobber. She might not appear it, but everyone else in this match is kind of an established name so far. We have Alundra Blaze, obviously the champ. We have Luna, who has been around as a manager for years. Everyone that's watching knows Luna. Bull has already been established as an amazing competitor for the belt during pay-per-views. But Heidi Lee Morgan, she's really not. She's just kind of the only name that has been thrown in there that's just kind of a fill-in or enhancement talent, if you will. So that is why I picked her as my Jobber of the Week, because I thought she did a hell of a job in the ring. So I'm going to start my segment off. This is a very rare Jobber of the Week because the Jobber will actually win their match. Sure, Heidi Lee Morgan will not score the pinfall, but she will be on the winning side. So that's something to note. Heidi Lee Morgan was born June 29th, 1967 in Newfield, New Jersey. She was trained by both the Fabulous Moolah and Johnny Rodz. Morgan began her wrestling career at the early age of 10 years old as a valet for her father, Les Morgan. At this time, she would use the ring name Daisy May. In her late teens, she would decide to leave the wrestling world behind to pursue a career in bodybuilding. However, she would not stay out of the family business for long. After being approached by Vince McMahon at a bodybuild exhibit, she would decide to give up bodybuilding and start training as a wrestler. She would have her in-ring debut in 1987. After working on the independent circuit in North and South Carolina, she joined the National Wrestling Federation, or the NWF, in the spring of 1987. In May of 1987, Morgan would battle but ultimately lose to Wendy Richard for the NWF Women's Champion in the first ever Women's Steel Cage match. In 1990, she would win the the LPWA Tag Team Champion as part of the tag team Team America with partner Misty Blue. They would hold the titles for well over a year. On December 13th, 1993, Morgan would make her WWF debut, losing to Alundra Blaze in the finals of a tournament to determine the new WWF Women's Champion. She would leave the WWF in late 94 to start a family. In 1997, after giving birth to her daughter, she tried to revive her wrestling career. However, it was tragically cut short when she broke her back in her first match back. She was attempting an aerial maneuver that she was well known for, but this time her and her opponent lost their balance, resulting in them falling to the mat and Morgan breaking her back. She would later say that Afa of the Wild Samoans advised her against the maneuver since her opponent hadn't trained using it yet. However, she decided to go for it anyway. Although the break did not result in her becoming paralyzed, she would spend the next 6 months in a body cast and would never be able to wrestle again. She now lives with her husband and daughter, while also lending a hand at her family's wrestling school.
They trotted her out there at 10 years old as a valet. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, she started at 10 years old as a valet for her father.
Wow. Well, like Bruce would say, it was a different time back then.
Yeah. Well, I think just based off of that reading, I think I'm going to forgive you and go with it because that was much, much more entertaining than I thought it was going to be.
See?
I appreciate your selection of Jobber of the Week, Ryan. Thank you very much.
I know last week I said there's not a science to it, but maybe there is.
Yeah. And I'll also, she's kind of rare in that I doubt we'll ever probably talk about a female jobber, will we? Probably not.
That was also kind of, I kind of lend that way because I figured it was going to be a rare thing. So I might as well use it while I could.
Yeah, I'll go with it. So we return from that commercial break with Bull Nakano entering the auditorium with Luna Vachon following behind. And I've said it before, I will say it again. I love everything there is about Bull Nakano. I love her look. I love her entrance music, her outfit, everything. The way she works in the ring. I am a Bull Nakano fanboy. We're going to cut to another commercial right before this match gets going. This one was weird. Beginning Sunday, October 23rd, the Action Zone. This isn't... And then there's like a clip of a guy with a chyron that says his name is Mike Zitka with a Z, rambling off a stream of football jargon. And then the screen says, "This is," and we get clips of high-flying superstars doing various maneuvers. Then we get, "This isn't," Greg Gumball and Zeon Danders, with Greg Gumball asking what your favorite breakfast cereal is, and Zeon Danders replies with, bran flakes. Tune into the action, tune out the talk on WWF Action Zone, beginning Sunday, October 23rd. We return, after that, with Alundra Blaze and Heidi Lee Morgan entering the ring while Vince repeats almost word for word everything that just happened in the Action Zone commercial. Like names and everything. Right down to the fucking breakfast cereal. It was pretty annoying.
Yeah, listening to it, it sounded like Vince was very proud of that commercial.
Yeah, clearly the whole thing was his idea.
Yeah, he thought it was something clever as hell.
Deion Sanders, or what's it? Zeon Danders, whatever the hell they called him. It looked like Too Cold Scorpio, also known as Flash Funk in the WWE. I thought that's who that was, but then I looked it up and I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. I could be wrong. I don't think it was Too Cool Scorpio. Too Cold, excuse me. Yeah.
It was horrible.
It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't great either. I have it noted here that, to me, Heidi Lee Morgan looks like a Mae Young throwback. Like she's a circus wrestler from the 1950s. She's got this crazy ass hairdo that looks like it looks like she hasn't changed since she was paraded out at 10 years old, I guess. Knowing that now, I didn't know it before, but it makes total sense. She's been stuck in the same outfit and hairdo for 30 years. Morgan starts out against Luna, and Luna is very much healing it up with some eye rakes. Morgan does get a quick pin, and it looks like it's going to be a fast-paced match, and it is. Vince calls Bull Nakano a big, awesome monster. Once Bull Nakano gets in the ring, a USA chant starts out in the crowd. Morgan actually pulls off a really incredible takedown. I do give her credit here, a really great takedown of Nakano, but Nakano starts throwing her weight around and just like literally flinging Heidi Lee Morgan around the ring. Fantastic to watch, before tagging Luna back in. And Alundra Blaze has not hit the mat yet after a scoop slam. And maybe one of you guys can explain this to me. So Heidi Lee Morgan does a scoop slam on Luna, which whenever you perform a scoop slam, you're doing it to the person that's right there in front of you, and they wind up on the mat directly in front of you, like inches in front of you. So after this scoop slam, Morgan does a diving jump right past Luna. Like she jumps over Luna, but she was standing right next to her. There was no need to dive. She overshoots Luna by like a foot.
I was confused by that as well. As good as I thought that Morgan did in the ring, because she did a lot of high-flying moves here, that was the one spot that I have marked. Even Vince was like, what the fuck's going on there?
Well, she is a jobber.
Yeah, exactly.
It was glaring how bad that was. Like, I don't know. It looked like maybe she was trying to go for one of those dramatic leaps for the tag, like how people just leap for their corner and just barely get within arm's reach to make the tag. Looked like she was kind of going for that, but she was already in the corner.
And that's what Vince kind of plays it off as, is that she was trying for the tag, but...
Well, anyway, we'll keep it moving here. Morgan then tags in Alundra Blaze while Luna tags in Bull Nakano. Thank goodness, at first, Morgan and Luna don't interfere while Blaze and Nakano go at it, because you can see in this match, before any interference happens, whenever it's just Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano, you can see glimpses of that awesome women's championship match between the two of them at SummerSlam. I was again struck by how the amazing chemistry that Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano have in the ring together. It was a short amount of time, before Morgan and Luna started fucking it up, but just for like maybe 45 seconds to a minute, there was just this glorious period during this match where there were just two really talented women's wrestlers in the ring. And then, of course, the match turns into a clusterfuck as all four women wind up in the ring. Blaze ends up landing a really nice suplex into a bridging pin on Luna for the 3 count. And we're going to cut to commercial while the ladies are all still in the ring. Joe, what did you think of this match?
Well, you mentioned her look. The thing that we're talking about Heidi. The thing that I noticed was, to me, it looks like I picture her like out, obviously not wearing her ring gear, but just wearing like jeans and a t-shirt. And to me, she looks like a lady you'd see at a VFW chain smoking by the video poker machine for like 4 hours.
Yes, that is perfect.
Yeah. The ring gear is going way up her ass. Like she had a monster wedgie that whole match.
There really wasn't much to hold it out, though.
Yeah. Macho Man has as big a hard on for Bull as you do.
I know. I noticed that.
I, however, have a a massive hard-on for Alundra Blaze, because to me, watching her, like when in '94, I was a kid. I was like, this women's wrestling's stupid. I'm not even paying attention. But now, just watching her back then, to me, she's better than 95% of the women today in wrestling. Like,
yeah,
she's just so far ahead of her time. Just what a freak athlete she was in the ring. So yeah, I get pretty excited to see her matches. I was excited for this one, but it was kind of a letdown, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you said a letdown, because for me, I thought it was a pretty good match. It really, to me, like you kind of alluded to there, it reminded me of more of a modern day women's match instead of where we'll be getting in a few years this complete farce that will be the women's title. This was like a real wrestling match with some good action going on, some high spots. I thought it might have been the best match of the night, to be honest with you. So a couple of the things that I have noted, though, we're all talking about Heidi Lee Morgan's appearance when she comes out. Have any of you ever watched the Netflix show Glow? Based on
yes,
okay.
Liberty Bell.
Yes. Yeah. The first thing I thought of when I saw her was how much she reminded me of Liberty Bell from Glow. Of course, Liberty Bell she's kind of a combination of two wrestlers from the real Glow League called the Southern Bells. It was Scarlett and Tara. So she's kind of a mixture of the two, but man, does Heidi Lee Morgan really look like that character. It really reminded me of that. The other thing I have is I really loved Alundra Blaze's music on the way down. To me, it sounds like something from Road Rash from the Sega. Like that was just immediately I thought of Road Rash. So that was one of my favorite games of all time. So happy thoughts with that. Neither you continued to mention Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr was mentioned many times during this match.
I just couldn't do it.
At one point, Vince puts a question up to Macho Man if he's talking about Roseanne Barr in the Playboy Bunny outfit. And he says, who would you take, Roseanne Barr or Bull Nakano in the bunny outfit? To which the Macho says that he would take both of them. Because if he's going to go strange, he might as well go all the way.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
So, the other thing, the last point I'm going to make, as much as you're in love with Bull Nakano, I am shocked you did not bring up that impressive double suplex that she put on.
It was absolutely impressive.
It was. I have noted here, underlined, what strength. Because, yeah, that was great. I don't even know if in modern wrestling I've seen a woman pull off something like a double suplex. So that was impressive. It stood out to me. I loved it.
I'm surprised that didn't break Heidi Lee Morgan's back, because she seems very frail. So I'm not surprised to hear she ended up breaking her back later.
Yeah, not a whole lot of meat on them bones. Unlike Bull Nakano and Roseanne Barr. But yeah, like I said, I'm sure it probably came out in my recap there, but overall I liked this match, but that just short little space of time where it was just Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano, that was great. Short but sweet. And you guys have really said just about everything there is to say about it. I won't beat it into the ground because I'll start getting an erection thinking about Bull Nakano. We're going to move it along to some more commercials. These are commercials that are going to go into video clips. The first commercial is a view of a city skyline with King Kong Bundy walking between buildings. Then a view of him climbing the Empire State Building and swatting at cartoon planes that are flying around him. Then we get the graphic saying King Kong Bundy in action next week. We get reminded that next week we'll also have Lex Luger versus Bam Bam Bigelow, and that coming up next, Mr. Bob Backlund will be in action. Thank Friar Ferguson, we have another Catholic Church commercial. Bless me, Father, for I am tormented. This is the same commercial that we got the last time that we had a Friar Ferguson commercial. The hot young brunette in the confessional stating that she had begun thinking of superstars in the most intimate of times. I'm not going to rehash it. We've already talked about it, but it's good stuff. Please forgive me. The new WWF generation. Have faith in us. And of course, this new generation commercial is going to segue us into highlighting the old generation with a clip from December 26th, 1983. And the Iron Sheik has Bob Backlund in a camel clutch. A towel is thrown into the ring by Backlund's coach to signify that Bob Backlund is submitting to the Sheik and therefore losing his championship title. This is going to lead us into our final match of the evening. Bob Backlund defeating Gary Scott by submission in 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Mr. Bob Backlund is coming down to the ring where Gary Scott is already waiting for him. Even though we've been hyping the new generation, Vince reminds us that the last time the superstar that is currently in the ring, Bob Backlund, was the WWF champion was over 10 years ago. And the match gets started. While Backlund has Gary Scott in a hold, Vince reminds us of Luigi and Frito weeks ago in the demonstration of the chicken wing. Joe, how's Louie doing? How's your papa?
He's good. He's good.
Okay, good.
Thank Friar Ferguson.
Backlund's behavior and posture are just so fucking weird. I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it here again. And I don't think it's for his snapping gimmick or like him losing his mind, this whole gimmick he's got going on right now. I'm pretty sure this is how he has always acted in the ring. Like I said, it's just his behavior, the way he kind of like holds his arms and like dangles his hands and his posture, and just, he's fucking weird. Backlund gets Gary Scott in the crossface chicken wing. The bell is rung. This was a squash match. Backlund continues to snap, refusing to let go of the hold. Finally, he lets go and stands there staring at his hands. He's very proud of himself yet again. I noted here that there has been almost no crowd noise for either competitor here. It doesn't really seem like anybody in the building kind of gives a shit about this. Backlund goes to help Gary Scott up, but then drops him halfway up. Back down to the mat again. The camera zooms in on a sign that says, "How long has it been since Mr. Bob Backlund was WWF champ?" And the answer is, yet again, over 10 years ago. This is the new generation, folks. There's a quick clip before the break commercial of how earlier tonight there was a conversation at ringside between Bob Backlund and Bret Hart that we mentioned earlier during the Anvil Bulldog match. Vince says that when we come back, we will hear from Bret Hart about what happened there in that little chat that they had when we cut to commercial. Ryan, what did you think of the Bob Backlund match here?
As the only high school collegiate wrestler here, I really enjoyed them playing up the real wrestling type maneuvers that they were doing to each other here. You mentioned the way Bob Backlund stands, and he's kind of standing in your traditional real wrestling stance. So that's kind of what he's giving there. So does Gary Scott. They both kind of get into that if they were wrestling collegiate style wrestling. So that's kind of explained that. I haven't noted here that there's been a whole bunch of talk of Roseanne Barr. And yeah. And even though she's not mentioned in this match, when I first saw Gary Scott, the first thing I thought of is he looked like David, the actor Johnny Gallinack or Getnicki from the Roseanne show. That's all I thought of. And I was going to say a less muscular version of David, but I'm not sure that's very accurate. He's got about the same physique here. And at one point, Vince even talks about how Bob Backlund is allowing Gary Scott to get some ride time as Gary Scott applies some legs on him. Those are all just, real wrestling moves that they were doing here. So I will say I got a bit of a boner out of the real wrestling going on here. That was kind of, well, because that's what Bob Backlund's kind of known for. He used to come out with the headgear and bullshit. So that's what they were playing up here. It is the real wrestling style. The only other thing I have noted here was Macho Man's miss joke about the new Justice Stephen Byer and liking what he did with ice cream, and Vince was all confused, and the only thing I could assume is he was trying to make some shitty link between the Justice's last name and Breyer ice cream, but it was a real miss of a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny Lipnicki is the kid from Jerry Maguire. I got that confused.
Oh my God.
It's Johnny Galecki. Johnny Galecki.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Well, so we started watching from January of 93. We're at October of 94. This is one of the worst matches that I've seen. I hated this match. I hate Howdy Doody, and I think I hated this match mostly because I know what's going to happen. I don't think I would hate it as much if I didn't know what was going to happen, like later with Howdy Doody here. And the crowd doesn't give a shit about Bob Backlund at all.
Yeah.
Which amazes me.
A terrible final.
Yeah, it amazes me that they continued this push for Backlund. I don't know. I wonder if this was sort of a way for Vince to like pay tribute to his father. Let me give Bob Backlund this push just to kind of pay tribute to his dad.
Yeah.
Or a thank you to Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
Helped them out, for years.
Yeah. But man, the crowd just doesn't care at all.
They're not like Bartlett. They're like me. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. Even when he was out there with Bret Hart.
Says the man that was getting a boner from this match.
Hey, I can't help it that they were trying to display some legitimate wrestling skills here.
There's just something about Bob Backlund and that headgear. Gets my motor running.
God, look at him. Look at him bounce around with that posture. Oh, God, he looks like he's about to twist somebody up.
Shoot a single leg takedown.
I agree with you, Bartlett. I think it's almost like it makes you think of like those old black and white video, like wrestling videos moving in like fast motion and stuff. It's just, it's weird. But I don't know. I find it odd to believe that they just kept this push going, even though the crowd does not give a shit about it. But, looking back, you think about the Lex Luger push, it's like, well, the crowd sort of gave a shit about that, but this they do not give a shit about at all.
No, they don't care at all.
Yeah. So the throwing in the towel thing is funny how that's being used again now with modern day wrestling.
Yeah. Old Cody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of interesting that we're talking about this right now. They mentioned a Survivor Series is going to be in San Antonio, which is going to be a little bit relevant, and we'll find out why eventually. So yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else noted here.
Yeah. So I didn't really care for this match. It was a squash match. We all knew it was going to happen. Bob Backlund was going to snap. He was going to put the chicken wing on a fucking jobber and go to town with it for a minute. And that's it. That's what happened. Joe, to your earlier point about Bob Backlund, I distinctly remember hearing Bruce Pritchard talk about this in an episode of Something to Wrestle. What it amounts to, I think, if I can correctly paraphrase it, is that Vince just kind of had a soft spot for him. He was one of Vince's dad's guys, and whenever Vince was getting more involved in the business is about the time that Backlund was there, and that's pretty much it. Vince had a soft spot for Bob Backlund. This is why he is here now, and the soft spot is also why we see him, what is it, like 2-3 years from now, whenever he does his Backlund for President shtick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty much just it. Vince has a soft spot for Bob Backlund.
Well, I think the other thing that made it easier, too, was the fact that Hulk Hogan's gone. And looking back on 83, that's when Vince wanted to take the belt off of Backlund and put it on Hogan. So now that Hogan's gone, just makes it easier for Vince to have that soft spot and give this guy this push right now.
Yeah, because it's not like we have a new generation that we can push. Oh, wait, we're doing that too. Yeah, that you know what? That's probably the thing that I did not like the most about this match, is that they literally had a new generation commercial going into this match where we're talking about the superstar was the WWF champ over 10 years ago. Just the complete just fucking ass backwardness of it is just.
It's almost become a trend. Anytime they mention the new generation, it's immediately followed by an old generation match.
Yeah.
It almost seems like it's an inside joke or something within the federation.
I've thought that too a couple times. Like it happens so regularly that I'm beginning to wonder if they do it on purpose. I don't know what the answer to that is, but all right. So anyway, we're going to, we exit that match with a commercial, and we come back from commercial to the ending of Raw. This is the last couple minutes of Raw here. And we're back with Vince and Macho at ringside. Vince says next week we're going to have a special holiday edition of Monday Night Raw since it's Columbus Day. Bam Bam Bigelow will be taking on Lex Luger, but there's no mention of Tatanka. Get it? Tatanka, Columbus Day. Bret Hart is going to join us now from backstage via video feed. Vince and Macho congratulate the Bulldog on his DQ victory over the Anvil. Like, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, huge victory.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Owen came in there and kicked you in the face. Congratulations.
It's like that dumpster victory over the King a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Vince asks Bret to enlighten us as to what Bob Backlund wanted at ringside. Bret says he thinks that Bob is kind of losing his marbles. He was talking about how Backlund is the world champion because Backlund's never been beat. Bret says that he beat Bob Backlund not that long ago, and that he has a dozen guys that have all earned title shots, and it's Bret's job to take on all challengers, but Bob has had his chance. He respects Bob, but Bob has to get in line. He's already beaten Bob Backlund. Backlund must be losing it. Vince appreciates the fact that Bret Hart is the fightingest champion of all time and says best of luck. Join us next week for more Monday Night Raw, and we fade to black. So, highlights and lowlights. Joe, get it.
Well, my highlight was definitely the farting noise from the whoopee cushion.
Oh my God.
No, a real highlight for me would be, like I said, Alundra Blaze. Just watching her work is always exciting. My low light is this continued Bob Backlund push. I hate it more and more, and Bret Hart even has a hard time selling it with that interview. It's like, man, he doesn't like it. The crowd doesn't like it. It's just weird. So yeah, those are that's my highlight and low light.
My highlight, number one, is just going to be kind of a general overall. We can kind of see Raw, even though this Raw did not have the best matches in it, they're really starting to get into the storytelling. Each one of these matches and the little video segments in between, they're really building more and more on these stories and feuds. So that's really neat to see happening here. The other highlight, as Joe kind of touched on, is the women's tag team. I thought it was the best match of the night. Everyone involved there was doing a hell of a job. So it's marked as a highlight and best match for me. Low light, the entire Doink Barry Horowitz match. Everything about this completely forgettable jobber match with this slow, uninteresting, non-Matt Osborne Doink. I don't care about it at all.
So yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Ryan, but I'll add a little twist to it. My low light was the Doink match, all of it. It's just so sad to see what was an awesome gimmick. And I know we've talked about it many times before, but I'll just throw it out there again real quick. The clown gimmick is dumb. It can be dumb. On Matt Bourne, however, it was a genius gimmick. The man took it and ran with it. And he was a great technical wrestler on top of it. And Doink was the Matt Bourne Doink was one of the best things of 1993 that we discussed and watched. This match, however, was just a constant ongoing reminder of what we had and what we don't have anymore. So that being said, my highlight of the night was the women's tag match, but more specifically, that short amount of time that I've mentioned a couple times where it was just Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano in the ring going at it. Very, very reminiscent of that amazing match at SummerSlam. That had me riveted. I was glued to the screen for that short amount of time. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. There's really not much else to be said. It was the shittiest fucking Doink match I've ever seen in my entire life, and one of the best women's matches I've ever seen in my entire life. So, Joe, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around October 3rd, 1994?
I have a couple things, but one thing I want to point out, another real quick highlight, was the beginning of the show. I really liked Owen and the Anvil getting out of that car and them, starting the show off with that.
The Mud Dog.
That Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
The Mud Dog.
I enjoyed that because it wasn't just starting with Vince screaming and, the typical start to the show. It was them getting out of the car back. Kind of the stuff you'd see in the Attitude Era, like you'd see Stone Cold Steve Austin walking in the back, that type of thing.
Yeah, or The Rock getting out of his limo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that. But as far as notes from the Observer, news around October 3rd, 1994, not a whole lot going on. He's reporting a lot of stuff happening at house shows that are kind of preparing for Survivor Series at this point. Jerry Lawler and Doink will be having a Survivor Series match. I'm not going to spoil what's going to happen. I'm sure most wrestling fans know what ended up happening with them with that match. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about it when the time comes. There are rumors, Dave Meltzer's reporting that rumors of Ultimate Warrior and Sid Vicious returning. Obviously, softball season is over.
Yeah, I must have lost in the playoffs, I guess.
Yeah. Sid, I guess, was notorious for when he would go back and forth between WCW and WWE. He would want to be the top guy. He would insist that he is the top guy when he goes there. So a team that we haven't talked about in quite some time, a favorite here of the Wrasslin Raw podcast, a tag team of Men on a Mission. Mabel has been appearing on house shows by himself and doing the rapping himself. So Oscar is not there. God. And Mo appears to be gone and nobody cares.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I wish I could see some footage of King Mabel rapping.
Yeah, maybe we will. Who knows? But that's pretty much all that's in the news for October 3rd, 1994.
Thank you for that, Joe. Pleasure as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. Also, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw popping up in your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. Hit us with a 5-star review or 4 3/4 if you're Dave Meltzer, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to get into the Raw that aired on October 10th, 1994, with matches featuring Bam Bam Bigelow and Mike Coury, among others. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.